Hello and welcome to Mind Gourmet. My name is Nina Kaiser. I'm the co-founder of Mind Gourmet and, as always, your host today. My today's guest is German thought leader, international teacher and coach, co-founder of the Network for Transformational Leaders and founding members of the Changemakers, Gido Schimanski. Welcome, Gido. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Me too. And I'm so happy also to have a German guest today, like a fellow German.
Yes.
And before we are diving into our conversation, I'm introducing you a little bit to our audience. Mm-hmm. Gido is an international teacher and coach, best known for his transformational programs with creative high achievers. Following a fortunate career on stage and screen, he now works with private clients in the UK, US, Singapore, and throughout Europe, helping them break through their self-sabotage mechanisms and limiting paradigms. He's the creator of the successful auditions program for creative high achievers and the Angels of Forgiveness, the Little Journey of Letting Go CD. Personal impact clients are senior executives from the corporate world, as much as high achievers in the entertainment world and professional athletes. In the latter field, he works closely together with Fusion 5 Performance in Germany, assisting professional football players and other top athletes. Recently, he has facilitated trainings for the Royal Academy of Music London, the Voice College, as well as Fusion 5 Performance in Germany. Gido is co-founder of the Network for Transformational Leaders and a founding member of the Changemakers. He has specialized in the high-achieving mindset, and the techniques at the core of his work very often leave his clients with instant shifts in their reality. Now, this sounds all so interesting. Working with executives, high achievers, professional athletes, facilitating trainings for the Royal Academy and Fusion 5. So that's where I would like to start. Would you share some more details about what you do and what you're catalyzing your clients into?
What I'm catalyzing my clients into. So I describe it best as I work with high achievers that are often in the public eye, helping them under all that pressure to become the best version of themselves, to stay the best, and most importantly, that is really close to my heart, most importantly, enjoy what they have achieved so that in their most important moments, they don't start sabotaging themselves, but are actually able to draw on 100% of their potential. That whole self-sabotage thing is what we hopefully get even deeper into later on, because that is what I'm very passionate about. So my clients are, for instance, top executives, as you said before so beautifully, professional football players, or even some pop stars. And very often the image they project, the outstanding careers, the money, the success, the fame, and even the happiness, that image they project is very far from how they often feel inside, where they are waiting to be found out, often thinking, when will people know that I'm actually not that good? Mm-hmm. And nobody knows how they really feel. And that leaves quite a big gap. And so I help them close that gap and enjoy how, well, I like to say how magnificent they really are in what they do. So I believe people are so extraordinary in what they do. Everybody can be so extraordinary if they tap into their purpose, their passion, and so few actually get to enjoy what they can do. And what seems to separate this work from other systems I know is that we are able to go straight to the core, straight to the root of those backholders and release them there. So people are not only able to perform better, but like themselves better instantly. And that's what we do.
For me, listening to you, it's so interesting to hear actually that these people that many of us actually admire so much for the way they show themselves to the world can be so troubled inside. And that is actually such a pity that it almost sounds like they're you know, viewers or listeners or audience enjoys them more than they enjoy themselves. And
yeah, so I wouldn't even say, you know, I wouldn't call them troubles, because I believe there's nothing broken, or there's nothing that needs fixing. There's a reason why they have the success they enjoy. There's a reason why they do all the things they do. But like most of us, very often they find themselves in a space where they go, well, you know, I'm just doing what I'm doing. I'm not actually that good. Or they haven't. Very often, you know, we grow into a new position, but we haven't cleared up what we might think about ourselves, you know, what we have thought about ourselves when we were little. And so that gap gets bigger and bigger. So I don't really like that that picture of saying you need to be troubled and then, you know, we need to sort something out that needs fixing or that is broken. That's just part of being human. We're all human. We all need healing. For me, it is seeing you're already doing great. Let's see what we can do so you can enjoy it even better. And maybe you get even better at what you do.
mm-hmm. So let's back up just a moment, because I would so much like to know, how did you get to where you are today, working with these people? Because do you find part of yourself in them because you were coming from a similar background?
How much time have we got? When you ask me, how did I get there? So, yes, I find, of course, you know, most of the programs, most of the stuff I do with my clients is stuff that I went through myself. So my CV is pretty colorful. I've done a lot of different things in my life, so much so that I often think I've completely made this up. So I've been a ballet dancer, I've been an actor, I've been a singer, I've been a coach, I've taught training. So I've done all these different things. I started this work. For me, one of the pivotal moments is at the age of 18. I was just training to become a ballet dancer. And I'm very careful with this word because people often think I mean belly dance, and I don't mean belly dancer. I was a ballet dancer, so classical ballet. And at the age of 18, I used to have pain in my hip. And the most famous doctor in Munich back then said to me, if you don't stop dancing, you will be ending up in a wheelchair within 2 years. Now, for a young artist who just embarked on his career, who just trained, that of course is heartbreaking. It's soul destroying. Funny enough, or luckily enough, there's a part of me that didn't believe him. And luckily enough, my director at the school didn't believe him either and sent me off to all these different experts. And for 2 years, we examined the arthritis that I was supposed to have in my hip. And we saw x-rays, we did MRIs. I saw that something wasn't right with my hip. But I kept training. And to make a long story short, 2 years later, I ended up in one of Europe's biggest companies. I started dancing. I didn't have much pain. And I found out that, well, a colleague of mine said, well, funny enough, I used to have the same pain. Why don't you go and have a different look with a naturopath at this? Now, in the 80s, that was completely outrageous. You know, that was thought leading in itself. And when she looked at my back, she said, well, no wonder you have pain in your hips, because your back is completely out of alignment. But I need to do a different x-ray. Do you have x-rays on you? And I said, funny enough, I've just lost my x-rays. I've been carrying these x-rays around for 2 years. So she made new x-rays, and the arthritis I was supposed to have that we all saw on the pictures had disappeared. Now, medically, you can't explain that. Was there shadows? I mean, the simplest explanation is maybe there was shadows on the first pictures, but then we did MRIs as well. We don't know what happened. All I know was that if I would have believed just one statement from one doctor, I would have given up my dream, my existence, my career, and probably my health. And so I made a conscious choice back then to never just give in to one thing that people say to me, and always explore and see what's behind that. Now, fast forward, I was a ballet dancer. I then joined other shows. I became a singer in musicals. And when I was way back in, deep in my 30s already, I was in one of the most physically demanding shows. This was Cats. And I had trouble. I was troubled with my knees, and the doctors, 3 different doctors. So I already went in and saw different doctors, and different doctors told me I need to have an operation on my knees because my meniscus was ripped. And yet again, I didn't believe it. Based on what I had learned when I was 18 years old, I started exploring how other people address their physical issues. And I came to the conclusion that mind over matter really is a truth.
Oh yeah.
And so I started exploring different avenues, different ways of looking at this problem. And funny enough, the moment I started looking, a person appeared in my life. She said, I don't believe it's your knees, I believe it's your back. And within 2 weeks, it was sorted. That was 14 years ago. I never had the operation, and my knees are still fine. Now, all of that together made me want to look deeper in what is possible. How much is mind over matter really a reality for people? And so I started exploring, I started training, and I trained in something called Omega Health Coaching, which was done by a doctor back then who said we only ever treat the symptoms, but never the real cause. And that is at the basis of everything I do, is the mindset, the belief system we hold that might create a stress in the system, that might create an illness or stop us from healing. Now, later on, I wasn't that interested in so much in just the heavy-going health issues. I was more interested in how does that whole mindset work on everything else in our life, including health, but also our love life, our happiness, our career choices, our money mindset. And it turns out the root is always the same. We just need to go into the core belief. I often say we need to find the belief under the belief, under the belief, under the belief, under the belief that drives you. And when you find that belief that you consciously don't know you carry, and suddenly you have the insight, you have the epiphany or the aha moment that you go, I can't believe this is actually at the core of me. This is what I truly believe, because I haven't had that conscious thought in about 30 years. A door opens and everything rearranges. So it's not even witchcraft. It's just what you believe about yourself shifts. And with that, everything that holds you back shifts, and you step into a completely new version of yourself. If that makes any sense. I'm a bit fearful that was a bit vague, trying to pack it all in one short sentence.
Oh no, it makes total sense. And following you, I was thinking, there are so many of us who are aware of limiting beliefs that are really trying to look beyond and below, above, around, interpreting how others mirror us back. But often, it's my impression, we have those blind spots that we don't see actually what's at the core. So if I can ask that, on top of you explaining what you just explained, so how do you find those core beliefs that are often like hidden in plain sight, but we don't see them?
I want to answer that in 2 ways. First of all, the blind spot, as you call it, well, that's a perfect name for it, because these are patterns we are conditioned to believe about ourselves. And now these are not bad patterns, because they are in place to keep us safe. They, at some point, I always explain it as like an operating system on a computer. You only have the hardware. I've got my Apple computer here. It's beautiful hardware, and then it needs an operating system, and then it needs programs to run. And the hardware doesn't do anything. It needs the operating system. And so when we are born into this world, this beautiful baby doesn't know what to do. It needs the hardware, and it does that by observing and absorbing everything that happens around it. It sees its parents, it sees its teachers, its preachers, siblings. It sees, oh, this is how life works. Oh, this is how much money you're supposed to have. Let it be a lot, let it be always enough, let it be not at all. This is how relationships work, and all these different programs go in. And so now out of those programs, out of that operating system, it can now decide, how does life work for me? Now, this has nothing to do with real life and nothing to do with the truth. It is a version of an operating system that now says, this is good, this can come in, and this is bad, this can't come in.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if we are conditioned to believe money is always just enough, or money is always there in abundance, or money is never enough, and if that becomes our temperature setting, our operating system, then we will recreate situations where we always find ourselves in that same situation, where then money is always just enough, or never enough, or always enough. Or relationships will always, they will always stress you, or people will always cheat on you, or money is evil, all these different beliefs. So now these conditions are in place to keep us safe. That's very important to know. That's why I said before, there's nothing broken. But if you want to move, we might want to release a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're in place to keep you safe, finding them yourself is nearly impossible. Why? Because it's like you're watching TV like this. You're too close to the picture. You're looking at, you have a flat screen TV and you're looking at this massive picture, but you can't see there's a tree and a house and people in it. You just see colors. And that's exactly, you're too close when you do it yourself. So of course, books are great. Audio programs, video programs are already even better because they can take you through a process. But I say, if you really want to go deep, get a coach, find someone, and there's so many different varieties. Find a technique that resonates with you, where you allow yourself to go deep and release a pattern. Now, the other side to that question is, how do you find a blind spot, or how do you find out? I in my workshops, I often ask, how do you find out what beliefs do you carry? And the answer is, look around you. I believe that your surrounding, your relationships, your financial setup, your career, your happiness is a 100% replica of your belief system. Mm-hmm. It's coming through your filters. It's been created through your filters. So it's never about changing the outside. It's noticing, I continuously run into the same wall. There's always this example of, the girl that always dates the same guy. It's, it's a different face, but he always ends up treating her the same way. Or the guy who always runs into the same relationship, let's not put any boxes on people here, or genders. And that is, we keep creating the same situation, but with different people, because it's a reflection of our mindset. My advice is, you can never change the outside. You can always change your inside. And if you change that, usually the outside, your results, in my experience, change immediately with it.
Yeah. These beliefs, they're probably the lens through which we see life. Is that, and so that's maybe why it feels like you're so close to a TV set.
They are, exactly. They're 100% your lens through which you look and through which you see life.
Yeah.
And that's good, because it provides you with, we are bombarded with so much information every day. Our brain has to filter out what it can let in and what it can't let in. The good thing is, it lets in everything that seems fitting and good for how we already think. The problem is, it doesn't let in any other opportunities, possibilities that are already there, but we can't see them because they don't fit our lens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before, you were quickly touching on being able to enjoy our own magnificence. And I remember at one point I heard you say something like, when it's about self-acceptance, it's often no, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understood it is that it's often easier to accept our flaws compared to how magnificent we are. And it felt true when I heard it. Heard it. Can you expand a little more on this?
I 100% agree with that statement, because I mean, just ask anybody and, you know, ask them to, oh, tell me 10 things you're good at. They probably struggle. They probably can tell you one or two. If you ask the same person, tell me 10 things you're not good at, 10 people you suck at. It'll take them a minute and a half,
yes.
And you have a list of 20. Now, that's the problem with our society today. We are conditioned to look at what's not working, look at the news. I still believe I still believe in humanity, no matter what I see on the news, because that is, again, it's a lens.
Yes.
We are trained even in school. You go to school and you write a test, and the test has 100 questions, and you get it back and it says 2 questions wrong. It doesn't say 98 questions right. At the age of 18, the average young adult will have heard 100 to 200,000 times, you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, who do you think you are, shut up, all this negative programming. So we are very much at home in making ourselves small. Things are shifting, times are shifting. So parents are now more aware of saying, even if you misbehave, I love you anyway, but you can't do this. I've just seen this with a friend of mine, beautifully dealing with her child. He was having a tantrum, and she kept just reinforcing that she loved him, but that's not how things work. You know, and that she wouldn't give up on him. So that for me, that was mind blowing, because the way I was growing up, I was brought up was, you know, slap her on the face and shut up and, you know, go to your room and think about what you've done. So tapping into our magnificence, even tapping into what we're good at, is so alien to people. Now, asking them to celebrate what you're good at is almost like you're jinxing it. So, well, you know, that would make me arrogant. That would make me have no friends. People will leave me. No, I'm much more likable if I tell everybody that I'm crap at this and that I shouldn't be this and I'm ugly and I'm fat. Listen, if your friends would talk to you the way you talk to yourself, you would kick them out of your life within weeks. And I mean that goes for almost everybody. And that's not right.
No.
And when we get into a space where we go, I know that I'm not good at, and I know that I'm really good at. That's my expertise, and I can still be better. And you see what other people see in you. Oh, that's just so beautiful when you relax into this. If I may elaborate on this, I've been, as you know, I've been on stage for almost 30 years in all different capacities. 25 of those years, I stood on stage sometimes 8 times a week thinking I'm not good enough. Everybody else would be better. And the audience was judging me. And what if my voice breaks? And what if I stumble? And what if, you know, what if? And I went back into a part I played a long time ago, 6 years after that. I was asked to audition again. And a friend of mine said back then, he said, well, just remember, you have such a trauma with this part, they might not take you again. I said, but I have coaching now. So I took myself through a program that is now at the basis of a lot of the programs I do. And I released all the trauma, all the sides where I felt small and not good enough and I can't do this. And I just kept clearing. Long story short, I auditioned. I had to audition again. I got the part. I did only 4 days of rehearsal. I went back on stage, and that night, for the first time in my life, I did my opening night. I stood there and I thought, there's probably 100 guys who can do this better. There's probably 1,000 guys who can't do this well. None of that matters right now. I have an audience to take care of, and I can only do that if I enjoy this ride. And that was the moment I decided I need to get this out into the world, because people need to feel the difference of enjoying what they're here to do.
I'm having goosebumps. And there's one thing that I would like to pick from the things you just said, and that is, in my experience, also when I speak with others, and it's about what maybe many call releasing blocks or negativity or self-sabotaging behaviors, belief systems, and so on, it comes to the point where it seems that releasing always just works for a little while. And then issues start to resurface and resurface and resurface. So actually, I guess I have two questions. One is, when do you know that you really released it and you're not just pausing it? And how do you really get to the point where it's gone?
I want to offer you a different angle on this. So if we were happy just where we are, we wouldn't need to change anything, wouldn't need to release anything. Now, usually the desire to release a block is because we want to change something in our lives. Let's say we want to get out of not being able to pay our rent, or we want financial freedom, mm-hmm. or we want a different kind of relationship. So now we set the intention, I want to grow. And very often that is when your blocks, those backholders, show up the most, because they want to be released, because that is your fear. Now you're stepping into, let's say, into a space of being 100% loved. And that's a space you probably don't know beforehand, just as an example. And now if you open yourself up for that space, of course, the old patterns that keep you safe are flaring up, because they say, oh, you better don't do this, because mm-hmm. You've learned 20 years ago, people will always cheat you, people will always hurt you. And so now you see that. Now what most people do is they go back into their comfort zone because they don't want to feel pain.
Yeah.
I say, go into the comfort zone, and this is what you describe, go into the uncomfort zone, the discomfort zone, into the discomfort zone, and then release that block. Now, let's assume you release the block and you're in a happier relationship. You now get comfortable in the new position. And if you would be just happy there, you wouldn't want to change, you'd be fine. But we live in a world of contrast. The moment we reach a new position, we have a new contrast, and we say, oh, now that I have achieved this, that would also be nice. So we're continuously evolving, continuously expanding. But of course, now we expand, so we need to drill a little deeper, because now another block pops up, another pattern pops up.
Yeah.
Very often, it seems to be the same block.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you describe as, why does it, it's gone, but then it comes back. The question I want to ask you is, are you then back in the same position where you were, or are you now living more already of the life you lived? So if you release the block, it will get you onto the next, I call it onto the next plateau. You settle, you get comfortable, you are comfortable, you see new contrast, you want to expand more. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you get into an unsafe position and you drill deeper into the same issue. So it seems like the same block, but for me, it's actually a sign that you evolved into the next position. So I say, it gets less and less and less. And for me nowadays, I say, oh, there you are, old friend. Apparently there's still a frequency, just a shade of that topic that I still need to look at to grow even more. It annoyed the hell out of me before, because I thought, I've released this 100 times.
Yeah.
And we're still stuck in the same place. It's not the same place. Okay. Because where I am living today is 100 times evolved from where I was 10 years ago. So it's not the same issue. But of course, it does, every once in a while, the same stuff comes up. But instead of coming up every day, it comes up every 10 months. And I go, oh, there you are again. And with that, it's gone. So that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I find it very encouraging to think about it in this way. And it does make sense. So, yeah. And especially because you described, you saw changes in your life. on the outside, so there must have changed something. And I realized that I often wonder why I seem to change on the outside, but not so much on the inside. And considering now what you said, I can probably rethink it and say I'm just maybe looking at different facets that feel pretty much the same, but they aren't. And so,
and what you described there is most likely then the gap I described before. You've changed everything on the outside, you've grown into it, you already have released, and then sometimes there's still that little girl that's pulling back, that that still feels like the same little girl, which in essence you also are, but that little girl has the potential for that, has all that magnificence in it. And now the job is not to change even more on the outside, but grow into that space and allowing yourself to enjoy and dare I say it, celebrate your changes, your successes, and go, I've created this.
Yeah, I think you're very right. And I would like to touch on the phenomenon of change in connection to that. I mean, we kind of circled it, talking about beliefs and self-sabotage and owning our own magnificence. And I think probably most of us desire a change in any way, either because we want to go away from something that we don't like, or because we are fascinated and attracted by something. And to me, change is such an interesting phenomenon, because as soon as we embark on it, all the resistance comes up. And it's like, maybe you want to make a change in one area of your life, and all your life gets turned upside down because it just doesn't work to change one little thing and not all the others. And so from your point of view, what is this thing with change and resistance and dealing in a way with it that might be a little easier than most of us do, either shrinking back in our comfort zones and then beating ourselves up for another day in which we haven't made the change, or like, almost feeling like you're moving a tractor through your own life, forcing it, which isn't also that pleasant.
Yeah, it's soul destroying, literally. And everybody wants change, nobody wants to change. That's what it comes.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to, because we're comfortable and we already know that life would be so much better, but there's the fear of the unknown, and what does it really mean? And so coming back, what I said before is really just circling it in, or narrowing it down on it now, is keep in mind that the way we are, our paradigms, our patterns, our programming is there to keep us safe. Now, if you want a change, you will have to change something about the way you look at yourself, the way you see yourself. And change always feels uncomfortable. Even if you get out of, let's say, an abusive relationship that is far from being comfortable, at least it's something you know.
Right.
We often look at friends or clients and we say, why do you keep going back into that relationship? Why do you keep going back into the pain, into sometimes physical abuse? And the only answer is because there is some feeling of safety in there. And leaving it would be even more scary. Now, looking from the outside, that's completely, you can't even comprehend, because it's so clear. But on the inside, it's life-threatening, more than staying in that relationship, until the pain gets so big that we need to shoot out of it. So it's with the little things. It's with, let's say you want to stop smoking, you want to change something. There's a habit you want to change, but also there's so many things that you linked to the smoking. For instance, it might be that it's your little excuse to get out of the group to actually stand alone in front of the door, or it's your little excuse to actually get into the group and feel connected. It might not even have anything to do with the nicotine or the behavior of smoking, but actually the emotions that are linked to it that we want to look at. It's not just the behavior, but also, do I fear I'm being outcast from my tribe?
Oh yeah.
And that could be smoking, that could be leaving a relationship, that could be making money. What will my family think if I'm suddenly being successful? You know, all these things, and it's different for everyone. So that's why I said it's so good to have somebody to walk you through it and help you think differently, because it's hard for yourself to see it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think you're so right. It's so valuable to work with a coach who can who can see and experience our future selves to such a degree that we can ride this wave, or this, it's so hard to describe, to borrow maybe this state and frequency, and it so much helps to change. And speaking of resistance, I would like to turn to what I don't know if it is really the opposite, but flow. To me, at least, flow is in my perception, is the absence of resistance, and a lot more, but one ingredient probably I could call it. And I had heard about you before, but I really got very interested in who you are and what you do when you embarked on your flow challenge on Instagram. And can you share with us why you decided it and to do it, and what your experience is? That I loved how openly you shared it, because it helped me a lot to understand my own relationship to flow and to myself. Now it's over already, right? So what do you think about it looking back?
So there's a few questions in there. First of all, I did the flow challenge. It ended up being called the 30 Days to Flow Challenge. The truth is, I did it because it made me uncomfortable, which is the beautiful link to what we said before, is you need to get comfortable in being uncomfortable if you want to change, because you know that in the end it's better. So, you know, it's just, this doesn't feel good, but it only feels good because it goes against my programming, not because it's bad for me. So the 30 Days to Flow are, I'm being steeped in this work. I work with resistance. I've done this work I've done my first energetic workshop when I was like 21. So I've done it for a while. And if there's one thing I know, is that I am limited. Talking about the programming, the limitations, limiting beliefs, we spoke about before, as much as I clear it and look at it and do the work myself, I know, being human, I have limiting filters, and I can only see through limiting filters. So one morning I was sitting in my meditation, I was connecting to my goals, my dreams and my visions. And I thought, what if, I love those visions, and I still connect with them. I have a vision board hanging right here. But they felt a bit stale. And I thought, what if even those visions are limited from what is really possible? They must be, because I'm human. So if I know one thing, it's I'm limited. You know, I will have filters on it. And so what if I actually strip myself of the filters and enter flow and let God, the divine, the universe, all that is, energy, life, whatever you want to call it, take over and guide me, because it probably has a much better picture of what's possible than me. That was the meditation I was in. And I thought, whoa, okay, that could end up big. Now, my first fear was, then you probably don't get off the couch. You probably just sit there and watch Netflix and don't do anything. And the moment I tune into that, I realized that's very much not true, because I realized, no, if you actually enter this then you will get impulse after impulse after impulse, because already I had the first three things. Then you do this first, do this first, do this first. And all these ideas flooded in because I wasn't limited by my own beliefs. And one of them was, if you do it, we dare you, the flow guides, I like to call them, we dare you to do a 30-day to flow challenge where you follow the impulses that you get, no questions asked. And the first impulse that you get is to document the whole thing live on Instagram. Now, I'm great with an exchange, like in interviews or in a session, but when I do a video that I want to play somewhere that is produced, I look at the lights, I look at that the sound is right, I know that every word is right, so I know I can meet you where you are. I don't want to get too fluffy. Now, doing something like this, live, going deep, is very uncomfortable for me. Mm-hmm. And my fears were already, okay, will I lose clients? Will they look poorly at me? I show weakness. But I felt, it just felt like the truth. I needed to do that. And so I mulled over it for about a day, spoke to it in my network with some friends who know my work, who know me, and they all said, this is awesome, and we're joining. Everybody who I talked to about this said, I'm joining this. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. So I just embarked on it. And I gave myself of course, if I want to stop, I just stop. Now, the flow guides, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is quite clever in saying you need to do this online live, because they know if once I start doing something live and sharing it live, I have no way to go back, because then my integrity kicks in. If I just do it for myself, I might have stepped out after a week too. So that is how the whole thing happened. And it's really just stepping out of your limitations and allowing yourself to set an intention and then really flow to take over, and not your own limits to block you then from seeing what's possible.
Yeah, this was such a beautiful thing. I'm actually looking forward to your next one.
So I can tell you a bit of the results that happened for me.
Yeah.
So my biggest fear was that suddenly clients drop off, mm-hmm. but quite the opposite happened. I suddenly had new clients get in touch, saying via friends I worked with before, or clients via Instagram that just said, this resonates so deeply with me. Now I'm hitting that block. Or clients who got in touch with me months ago and suddenly said, now is the time to work. And they probably didn't even see the flow challenge. It wasn't about a marketing tool. It was the change in my energy. It was synchronicities happened since then. You know, synchronicity is now a companion, continuous companion. That's the word I was looking for. So it's almost like I think of something and an email appears, or an impulse appears, or our interview happened out of this.
Yes.
I'm teaching a lecture on flow within 4 weeks, which, you know, in this area here in the Ruhrpott where we are, which happen out of this. So many connections happen out of this. I feel yet even more released from what might people think. Mm-hmm. And only that because I just followed flow. So a lot of things happen, even on the financial spectrum. It's quite interesting to see when you step out of your filters. How did you experience it?
There were several things that I so liked in it. First was that it so truly came over that you were embarking on an adventure with yourself, and that you allowed others to participate, which was beautiful, but it was, like you said, it's totally different from if somebody runs a marketing campaign. And then to me, it felt so honest and authentic, and you described things that I knew very well with myself. And because I tend to be hard on myself and think, yeah, you know, see, you're making yourself small all the time, and this doesn't work and that doesn't work. But realizing that also you go through those moments where your worst resistances are showing up, or where you feel like, hey, I actually don't feel like doing this challenge today, or having those deep issues coming up, like you would describe losing clients and whatever that might be for everybody. Help me to reframe and to see my own relationship to actually the opposite of flow, which is resistance, a lot, and to get impulses on getting more into flow. I remember one day, it was probably the video in which you felt not flowy at all. You described afterwards that just sticking with it because you promised it to yourself actually catapulted you in a beautiful flow, into a beautiful flow day, which is isn't it kind of absurd that sometimes we don't feel at all like doing something, and then it actually brings
every single time.
Yeah. And besides from that, I feel very timid about showing up in my own life, and Mind Gourmet is also about presenting myself on social media. And so I started to consider if I might maybe dare myself out into such an adventure again. Not again, also, and I haven't really decided it yet, but the seed is planted.
Beautiful.
And so I would like to ask you for everybody who feels also there's a seed that they would like to explore, how can our listeners find you, find out more about you? How can they work with you and connect with you?
So the easiest way to connect is probably via Instagram these days. You will also find, as we said, we documented the flow challenge there. So you find in the IGTV the different days when I recorded, so you can follow that and get some insights there. Or just find me on my, via my website, which is justmyname.com. Gido Schimanski. I'm not going to spell it here, but it's probably going to be written out.
Of course.
And there's, of course, a form to get in touch. And then all the other channels, of course, like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn is all open. But the website or the Instagram channel is probably where I get you the quickest. And if you want to explore this, just see, if you are in the creative world, the successful auditions program for Creative Achievers might be something that you want to look at, that takes you through a 6-week process of getting to know yourself and releasing. And if you want to go deeper, send me an email and we see if you fit, or if I fit for you. I'm very open, and I like being in touch with people.
So I feel, I could talk forever with you about these things, but I kind of feel we arrived at a beautiful point to close this conversation, but I don't want to do it without asking you, is there anything important for right now that we didn't talk about that needs to be mentioned?
Well, I want to say, stay in touch, because out of this flow thing will other things come. That is what I'm feeling at the moment. I can't say what it is just yet. So it's going to be interesting, I believe. The one statement I want to just drill in again is find comfort in being uncomfortable when it's just new. And don't believe everything you think. That for me has been my North Star for many years. Just because I think something doesn't mean it's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that makes it uncomfortable sometimes. But I always say the biggest gift I give my clients is that I already know that their story isn't true. That's the secret behind it all. I look at them, I hear the problem they present. Usually the problem isn't a problem, but I also know the story isn't true. I know your magnificence. I know your potential. I can see it. And I already know that there's some conditioning on top of it, because we all have it. So let's just get that out so you can shine. I think that's all for me.
Thank you from my heart for sharing this time and space with me. It was very beautiful for me.
Thank you for letting me share what's in my heart. So that's important.
Yeah, and with this gratitude to you and also to everybody who is listening, I'm saying goodbye, everybody, and always remember to take the driver's seat of the car called your life and create this lifetime to your taste. It's our pleasure here at Mind Gourmet to support you with our food for thought. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.